Skinnamarink dinky dink, Skinnamarink review. I love you. Well, I do. Every so often there comes a horror film that does what everyone else isn't doing, and moreover commits to the execution in such a way that it is determined to leave a mark on its audience. And in terms of searing a fresh, potent type of fear in me, 2022's Skinnamarink is the first in a very long time. Don't start looking for the door, my friends. Tonight, I have something scary to show you. People often call horror films the stuff of nightmares, and more than a few have given their heart and soul to constructing their filmmaker's vision of a horrible dream on camera. I certainly have a few picks of my own as to which horror films best capture the sensation of a dream, but not even one of them are in the same ballpark as Skinnamarink, a film that positively incarnates the feeling of paranoia you get when you're home alone, at an age in which anything can happen to you when you're alone. As the show begins in the year 1995, we are introduced to a certain few disorienting elements of the stage that we soon learn will characterize the entire film. We are looking constantly through a filter of grain that occasionally seems to even take malevolent form as the shadows intensify, while scarcely focusing on the film's characters even at length. Our gateway into the story has us staring down walls, ceilings, and floors at angles that deny us the knowledge of whether what we're seeing in any given shot or hearing in any sound is supernatural, mundane, or madness, morphing the reassuring world of the child at home into something unknown and terrible, while forcing you to wait, sometimes tirelessly, for what is going to take form next. This style will be a breaking point for a lot of viewers. Anybody remember Frozen Flesh? You'll have flashbacks, but this movie isn't trolling you. It fully abandons what is traditionally considered good filmmaking, but puts every dollar into luring the audience back into the same state of helpless anticipation as when you were a kid, praying for a particularly bad nightmare to be over. It is not style over substance. The style is the substance. And unlike your typical art film, Skinnamarink will reward your patience with earnest despair. The introduction to our two victims occurs just before bedtime. A brother and sister, Kevin and Kaylee, meet in the hallway to their rooms. The day is coming to a close, and Kevin is showing his big sister one of his toys. But their voices are soft from the other side of the room, and while you observe the ensuing events from their level, the lack of focus on their faces makes you feel more as though you're somehow observing these people out of body, just as unable to escape the narrow confines of this film's world. Or perhaps you're seeing through the eyes of something that thrives within them. The setting, characters, and background already ambiguous, things begin moving at the hour at which everything should be still, which we soon discover are probably all the innocent motions of Kevin coming to take his blanket into the stairway. Still, we can't help but wonder why he's awake now, sitting alone. Then, in the middle of the darkness, he asks, and the entire mood turns dark, as the room seems to change in the blink of an eye, with an ominous, heavy thud. Rather than being granted a clearer shot at what just happened, we're instead transported to other corridors around the house, and even from a distance, you can hear the raw, agonized screams of a young boy. When the house is quiet again, the children's father places a late-night call. The boy hit his head, apparently sleepwalking, and while his father expresses his concern, he just as soon dismisses it. The film then abruptly cuts from his conversation as he disappears. The house seems big when the children wake in the dead of night, and decide to stay up for a while, only to discover the unthinkable. All the windows and doors in their home have simply vanished in the night, leaving behind solid walls with no way to see outside. The way the film accomplishes this is micro-budget by the standards of any era, but how realistic it seems to the eyes doesn't matter to the boy and girl whose most familiar place has become somewhere, for all they know, they could very well die within, alone and never understanding why. But as you can imagine, they're not alone, and while they may never know why, the other presence has decided to play many, many games with them. The sister calls for her father, but her calls are unanswered, even by a dial tone. The receiver is not silent, but it never rings, the other sound being null and hollow. Without a look at her face, we are left only to imagine the horror and confusion in her heart as she tries an unmistakable emergency number and gets the same empty reply. As the night draws on, she is the only one who can play caretaker to her younger sibling, both of them weathering the long wait for things to go back to normal in the closest thing to comfort they have: the artificial lights of the living room, the television. But when they wake up to the same lights to find that it wasn't a dream, nothing has gone back to normal, and no other explanation is awaiting them, it dawns on them that this could be forever. They have food to last for now, and the paper, plastic, and plush playthings that brought them joy in a world that made sense, but their reality only continues to distort into something meaningless and mean. Downstairs, the toilet disappears, the same as the windows and doors, forcing Kevin and Kaylee to return to the darkness upstairs. But even as Kevin loses his nerves and the siblings retreat back into the living room for a second night, a voice from the dark makes it clear that it isn't done. Either desperate for answers or maybe terrified of what could happen if she doesn't, Kaylee follows the voice's order to come back upstairs. And in the oppressive dark of the upstairs bedroom, she's met at last with a familiar but entirely unwelcome sight.
Dad?
It's her father, sitting motionless on the edge of the bed. Rather than greeting her with warmth, he keeps his head turned and instructs her to look under the bed. She does as she's told, but neither she nor the audience are given a look at anything definite. Not until she rises back up, and we are introduced to a figure whose whereabouts have been thus far ambiguous, of which we only know that Kaylee doesn't want to talk about them: the children's mother. She has words for Kaylee that confirm what we had already expected.
There's someone here.
But nothing more, as she and the father disappear once again. That night, Kaylee has Kevin help her barricade the way to the upstairs. The two pull it off, but we can already tell, and are very soon shown, that this feat of resistance is utterly futile. The next one to disappear is Kaylee, but it doesn't take long for Kevin to find her, and to discover that they too are not immune to the madness that has consumed their home. With the younger boy left by himself now, the thing that is in control of this madness reveals itself to him, and proceeds to torture the boy for hours that turn into days as the sun never rises. This film is neither for the highly sensitive nor the impatient. When you're not seeing through the eyes of someone too little to be prepared for this type of terror, you're watching through some static angle of the false home, forced to witness both their tedium and turmoil while frozen in place. With the camera angles allowing the production to fudge the child actors' facial performances, they don't have to attempt to get them to express the type of terror befitting a scenario this nihilistic, and very wisely don't have them attempt to sell any high melodrama from this restricted viewpoint. At one point in the night, Kaylee gets Kevin's attention, and we wonder if she's about to say something ominous, but it's only,
Love you. Love you too.
conveying in a few seconds the kind of sympathy that the best child actors have struggled to evoke in horror performances throughout film history. As detached as we may be from what's going on, that's enough to make us want them to escape from this hell that neither of them have earned. Aside from the voices, which are at times far away and blend in with the soundtrack to the point we're given subtitles, the soundtrack alternates between the static accompanying dead silence and the worn, distorted audio of whatever's on TV at the time, ever becoming less of a source of safety in the darkness. As the specter's malevolence becomes more overt, the children's cartoons are turned into the soundtrack for the mutilation of their innocence. Melding film style less elegant than that of the McPherson tape with a degree of cruelty rivaling that of the Poughkeepsie tapes, Skinamarink does the increasingly uncommon and treads in territory that still feels dangerous, managing to do so both while solidly within the realm of the supernatural and without utilizing the medium of found footage to heighten the viewer's closeness to the film's events. What allows it to accomplish all of this is the film's greatest strength. The fact that from the ambiguous point of view to the surreal being casually thrown into the familiar to the sudden changes in what can be trusted, the entire narrative feels just like you're moving on autopilot through a kid's nightmare, where nothing is fair and nowhere is safe, playing on and on as you plead helplessly for any kind of light at the end of the tunnel when everything's over. But whether or not you're granted that much, I'm not going to tell you. Just for now, be thankful that you're on the right side of the fourth wall, at least until tonight, or until the next time you decide to look horror. Listen.